So we're gonna talk about wholesaling today, and like I said, I'm gonna do two things. One, kind of just tell you a brief kind of overview of what the process is and stuff like that as well. If anybody has any questions, chime in. Um, but then I'm going to talk about wholesaling as a business as well and how that's a little bit different than just using it as a strategy. But first and foremost, just for anybody who doesn't know, we're going to define what wholesaling is. This is a little graphic here. You put a property under contract for $120,000 as a wholesale, and then I sell that property to Ray for $150,000. I would get the fee of $30,000 in that situation. But I'm not actually selling the house to Ray. What I'm selling is my equitable interest. So no matter what, anytime that you sign a contract for a piece of real estate and an EMD is put down on a property, that gives you what's called equitable interest in the property. And then you're able to market and sell that equitable interest for a profit. Basically, you're just making connections and you're solving problems. Probably a couple of questions today be about legalities and stuff like that. There's some new stuff in the news with different states and stuff like that. I will say that I found this on about 15 different places that wholesaling real estate is legal in all 50 United States. And I completely agree with that, with the caveat of some of them do require licensing and different things like that. More and more states are going towards some type of legislation. I listed that Ohio, Illinois, Florida, Texas, Oklahoma, South Carolina, and Virginia, as well as the city of Atlanta, all have some laws that are kind of mentioning what's going on with real estate and how you can and cannot do business. Virginia is in my backyard. It's one of the markets that I'm still in. I have reached out and actually talked to 3 different attorneys at 3 different occasions about this situation, and every single one of us told me exactly that I'm not going to change my business at all. Now, my business partner in Virginia is a broker, so he is licensed. So we could always use that if we needed to. We don't now. It's 2 totally separate entities. I am not licensed in any state, and I don't plan on doing so. And I won't need to do it. I don't think we're going to have to change anything based on the new legislation for the state of Virginia. Because we're selling equitable interest. We're not actually selling houses. And I think a little bit of it has to do, this legal stuff that's going on, a little bit of it has to do, Ray was mentioning, with the government trying to have their hands in there to be able to make it. And I completely agree. They want this to be as a transparent and taxable event as humanly possible so that the government can get their taxes on that price as well. But it also, I think it has to do a lot with NAR and everything that's going on with that settlement and everything, just the stuff that they're trying to do to help control, because there's a lot of people that are out there that are posting large checks and all these different deals and all this different stuff. And I think a lot of brokers and realtors are seeing that people without licenses are making a lot more money than they are. And they want a piece of that action as well. That's why they're requiring a license. But you do not need a license in most states. And even some of the states that they say you need to, you actually don't. My biggest recommendation is to find a title company and a lawyer that you trust that's going to protect you and go to bat for you, and get their advice for the state that you're going to be doing it in and follow their advice. Ultimately, guys, if you do things ethically in wholesaling, you're very transparent. You're talking to the seller and you're telling the seller exactly what you're planning on doing. You're talking to the buyer and doing the exact same thing. Your closing company's all on the same page. You're not going to run into any issues. It's when miscommunications happen is when people's feelings get hurt, and then you start getting into legal issues. Any questions on the legal stuff? Cool. So I've been working on this for quite a while. I think you guys have probably noticed my shirts that I wear now, the START shirt. I like the acronym because START brings action, and I'm all about taking action, and I think it's definitely the first step into getting into real estate in general is just taking action, no matter what your plan is. So START really works for that, but it's all built around an acronym START, which I broke down as the 5 steps to a wholesale process. So study, target, acquire, resell, and transact, START. Um, Full disclosure, ChatGPT helped me with that. I'm not as smart as I look. So, but the 5 steps, and each one of them are equally as important, but some of them are less thought of than others. I think that the study thing is something that every new investor is going to do. You guys are here, you guys are networking, you guys are learning and different things like that. I learn every single week when I come here with you guys as well. It's a part of my study step. It's a continuous step that always happens. But I point out 4 things that you really want to know. And one is you want to know your market. Then you want to know what the sellers in your market are doing and what the buyers in your market are doing, and then how you're going to be able to reach both of them. And we'll get into it a little bit more later, but you want to know some typical motivations for the area. Is the high foreclosure rate, high bankruptcy rate, low job economies and stuff like that are going to lead to things like that. Higher financial distresses. You're going to want to educate yourself on how to market to people in financial distress. If it's a heavy area with a lot of distressed properties and vacant properties, how are you going to market and skip trace and find those people so that they're the ones that you're talking to? Same thing with your sellers, depending on the market that you're in. If you're in a real small market, you may want to find, or your buyers. If you want to find your buyers first in small markets, maybe, or in large markets, sometimes it even works out to do it as well. But you don't want to go out and buy a bunch of mobile homes in an area where nobody wants anything less than 4 units, because you're never going to be able to sell it. So knowing who your buyers are in your market is important, and then how to reach them. Targeting is all about the marketing, and we've talked about this the last couple of weeks. We've mentioned it here and there. Inbound marketing versus outbound marketing, pros and cons of everything that goes into it. Bottom line is, though, is that you want to make sure that you're talking to motivated people. And that needs to be your goal in real estate in general. You're never going to talk somebody into selling their house for a discount. You can solve a problem, and in return, they will sell a house for a discount, but you're never going to talk them into giving you a discount just because you're a nice guy or a pretty girl or whatever it happens to be. So finding people who are motivated, finding the reasons behind that motivation, and solving those problems is what you need to do and what you need to focus your time on. We acquire the property through contracts. So the whole contract process, getting it under contract at a good price, how to run your numbers, and then reselling the project, the marketing to buyers, negotiating with buyers, working out the contract for everything there. And then the final step is the transact step, where we get the deal to the finish line, we get paid. That's between you and your closing attorney and closing agent. It's all about control in that situation. I think it's probably the least thought of step in wholesale, but it's also probably the number 1 step as far as what kills deals throughout the process. People not doing it properly, not having paperwork in place in the right places and stuff like that, not being transparent, and then it falls through at the very end. We're actually, in 2 weeks, Ray and I are going to be talking about common deal killers. And I think the transaction process is going to make that list for sure. Talked a little bit about motivation. Like I said, in that target step, you want to make sure that you're talking to as many motivated people as possible. And you will never talk someone into selling your property for a 50% discount, right? If a house is worth $200,000 and you just offer them $100,000 just because you're a nice guy, they're going to laugh at you. But if they don't have the means to take care of the property, to get it up to its standards it needs to be, or they need to get out of a property quickly, or they're on a tight timeline because a bank is about to foreclose, or any of that information, you're able to find that information out and provide a solution, then you absolutely can buy it for even more than 50% discount. Every deal will be driven with either personal issues or property issues, or both, but none will lack both motivations. I think that's super important. Just because somebody has a vacant property, that can be a distressor on their own. That could be the reason why they sell at a discount. Just because somebody's in foreclosure, that could be their motivation, and it could be a beautiful house, but they'll still discount because they're on a tight timeline based on their bank. Very commonly, the house is in disrepair and they inherit it and don't want it, or whatever it happens to be. It's both of them. It will never be neither of them. I guarantee you there will be motivation there. And it's your job as a wholesaler to be able to find that. And as an investor as whole, right? If we're buying off-market properties and we're talking directly to sellers, we need to be problem solvers. And that's where the last one comes in. Stop focus on selling and start focusing on solving their issues. I was working with my my acquisitions guy today, and we were talking about a deal that he had written up and an offer and trying to go back and do renegotiations and things like that. Ultimately, it just came down to, after asking him a bunch of questions, like, dude, you have not done enough to find out what you're doing to solve this person's problem. Like, you don't know what their plans are for the money that they're going to get. They don't even know how much, you haven't even told them how much money they're actually being put in their pocket, right? I mean, there's so many different layers to it. Luke was actually on a couple of weeks ago, and he actually just put me onto a book, and I can't remember the name of it, but they were talking about the 7 levels of why in this book. And it goes down to, you can ask a question, hey, Ray, why do you like this? And Ray gives an answer. Okay, Ray, why do you like that? Okay, why about that? If you get all the way to the point where you've asked 7 deep diving questions, it gets harder and harder. Why do you want to be in real estate, right? You can get a very top glancing blow because I want to be financially free. Why do you want to be financially free? Answer that question. Why do you want that? Answer that question. By the time you get down to 7 levels, you're really getting down to the root of what you're trying to solve. And that's what we ultimately try to do in my business. Like I've said it before, my business, our mission statement is to provide solutions to every client that we serve. And that is something that every person in my company repeats on a daily basis in our morning meetings. It's ingrained into our heads so that when we're talking to our clients, that's exactly what we bring out. That's exactly what we're trying to achieve. It's like, dude, you are not solving the problem.
Hey Seth, let me just hop in too. I want to say to to people listening, this ties in with not just wholesaling. This is real estate, right? It's solving a problem at the end of the day. When you want buyer to seller, if you want to negotiate best deal, seller finance subject to, these are the same steps that you should be taking, right? Wholesaling is just a piece of it, of honestly just saving you a little bit more work and quick return. But like, this is a piece of it though, of all real estate, is understanding the motivation of why someone is selling. And if you can understand that, usually you can work out a better deal than you would just see as their listing price.
Yeah, and honestly, the reason why I got into wholesaling was because I wanted to buy direct from seller. I did not want to buy on the MLS or go through wholesalers or any of that, because I wanted to have the opportunity to make the most I possibly could. But I learned very quickly, to do that successfully, I needed to market to a lot of people, and there were going to be a lot of deals that just don't fit into my buy box. And so I'm able to cherry pick the deals, whether it's a buy and hold here in West Virginia, or it's a fix and flip in Richmond, Virginia, or whatever it happens to be. We're able to cherry pick the deals that we really want to do, that really get us excited, really get our team going, and do those deals, and then still monetize as many of these other motivated sellers as we talk to. And it turned into a business, wholesaling, by doing that. Honestly, if you're going to start marketing full-fledged like that, it's probably it's a good business to get into. It's a lot of stuff that goes into it.